how true is this 1 kilogram of fat contains 1,700 calories? So to cut just 1 kilogram of body fat, you need to burn the 7,700 calories. What do you think about this statement?
That might work for some people. The potential problems with that approach is that it assumes, one, that all of the weight loss is coming from fat, from body fat stores. That likely isn't gonna happen. It can happen, but it's likely not gonna happen. The next thing is, it also assumes that the energy balance equation is static, that it doesn't move. Let me say this differently. It assumes that you're gonna keep losing weight or fat at the same rate every single day and every single week. That's not typically gonna happen. The longer you diet, the less efficient your body becomes at losing fat. So you have to keep lowering calories or do some strategies like refeeds, diet breaks, etc. And then the third potential issue with that statement is it doesn't really account for any changes in body water. And that goes back to just assuming that it's all coming from fat. So in summary, it could be true, but I would not count on that. There's too many assumptions with that.
Okay. So the problem with a lot of people is they want to lose fast as possible. And that makes it really hard for you as a practitioner to kind of decide, well, this is the most conservative and the best approach. But how would you deal with those people that are really keen to go faster, and how do you do with that?
So if I'm going to be honest, I don't have to work with them because that's not my profession. I'd be like, I'm not the person for you. Go to 99 other people. So that sounds rude and it's not a good answer, but it's the true answer for me. I'm like, I don't, this isn't my job. I don't need to do that. What I would do is really educate on the negatives of dieting. I would give them the research. I would say, okay, when you diet quickly, here's what happens. And again, I think we have to assume that this person wants to optimize muscle mass, exercise. Again, if they're not into those things, I'm definitely not the person that they should be consulting with, because I'm assuming they're going to be active and driven in that regard. But I would say when you diet, your muscle protein breakdown goes up. It goes up 20% with a 20% caloric deficit in the first 2 weeks. That's not good. The muscle protein synthesis rates, they are significantly lowered when you go on a diet. Your metabolic rate gets suppressed when you lose weight quickly. You're going to be more hungry. So I'm going to invest a lot of time in saying, do you want these negative aspects to occur? Because if you do, and we can make you lose this weight quickly, but as soon as we stop, the likelihood of you gaining all of this weight back is very high. If you do it slow, changing out one thing at a time, the likelihood of you maintaining this for the rest of your life is much higher. Again, I work with an educated, my job is to educate, to tell them the harms. I used to be in sales, so I sell the harm. Do you want this? How many friends do you have? If I'm talking to a guy like Tom, how many friends have you had in your life that they've lost weight and gained it back? If he's normal, he's going to say almost everybody. That's what we're, I'm going to save you money. You do not have to do this again. In fact, if you work with me for a year, you should never need another coach again, because this will be your lifestyle. That would be my approach.
No, and I couldn't agree more with that. I think I would do exactly the same. And that's the way it has to be if you really want to make your clients really progress and find their results in the best way possible. That's our responsibility and our mission, to educate them and create awareness, because most times they are not aware of all these consequences. They just know that they have to lose the weight, but there's no awareness on the other things like metabolic adaptation and down regulations that we need to make sure they know, and they're not taking the risk because they just want to get rid of the fat as fast as possible.
Yes. Yep.
What are your best 3 rules for effective long-term weight loss in women? Because your lab works mostly in women, so let's talk about women, and then maybe just general population.
So I have like what I call 3 principles of fat loss. If I'm going to be honest, they're the same for males and females, but I think my lab does more weight loss research in fit females than anybody. So we do focus on females. The 3 principles are to lose weight slowly or lose fat slowly, but really that is just on weight. So we do not want to drop weight rapidly. The second principle is do not decrease protein when dieting. In fact, increase it if anything. And then the third principle is to resistance train. So all 3 of these rules, they all circle back to the negative aspects of dieting. They're all there because of evidence from the scientific literature that has reported that they fight against the loss of muscle mass. It fights against the loss of metabolic rate. And the other thing with protein, like keeping protein high, not only does it maintain muscle mass better, not only does it help keep metabolic rate higher, it's also the most satiating food. So the reason that most people, at least in my opinion, the reason that most people fail from dieting is they lose the hunger battle. They cannot deal with hunger. So protein, in many studies, not all, but in many studies, protein is significantly better at giving the feeling of fullness as compared to carbs and fats. So again, not all of that research points to protein as being superior, but protein is never the worst macronutrient. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's the same. My thought process on this is, why would you not try to focus on the one macronutrient that will help you with hunger? And by the way, it also is going to help keep your muscle mass and your metabolic rate higher. It's win, win, win if you keep protein high when dieting. And again, the rule is don't reduce it, but I would even advocate for increasing protein. And the literature in obese populations with higher protein intakes, it's enormous. Not so much in lean populations because there's only a handful of those studies. So those are the 3 rules. And again, they all exist to fight against the negative consequences of dieting.
How much protein can you eat? That is, how much protein is too much? And how can you eat, and how likely is this excess or surplus of protein to be stored as fat if you're actually creating a surplus that is pretty much over your maintenance calories? How likely is that to become fat? If you look at the equation of energy balance, energy in, energy out, if you eat more, you gain weight. If you eat less, you lose weight. So how does this work in the actual thermodynamics, and to putting that into a real life scenario? If I ate 400 calories more just coming from protein sources, how am I not going to gain weight from it? So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's almost like there's a protein paradox with the energy balance equation. Here's a challenge to anybody listening. I would like somebody to show me a study where you overfeed protein in people, in males or females. So you're gonna give them an extra 500 calories, let's say 400 calories a day, an extra 100 grams per day of protein. If they're resistance training, I've never seen a study where they gain any fat. I've seen 2 things happen. And again, now here's the catch. The increase in calories above maintenance has to be from protein alone. As soon as you start increasing fat and carbs, I don't think this applies. But if you only give subjects an increase in protein that's above maintenance levels, when you think they would gain fat, they don't. Either they don't gain any fat or they actually lose fat. I've seen it in 4 different studies. One of them being in my lab. We overfed females protein by like 300 calories per day for 8 weeks. They lost a significant amount of fat. I don't have an answer as to why. The easy answer is it increases their metabolic rate so much that what used to be their maintenance is now higher. So I'm very much looking forward to future studies. In fact, the next study I'm going to do is going to look at this a little bit in terms of increasing protein in females that are resistance trained. So, yeah, I'm just not aware of any research to suggest that overeating with protein is going to cause fat gain in a resistance trained population. But a lot of the coaches that I respect the most, they don't buy it. They don't believe it. They think that I'm maybe a little weird, but I have 4 studies that I can hand them where it's documented.
Yes, and I think that Jose Antonio is one of them that he did a study with, I think it was they were feeding the participants with 4.4 grams of protein or something like that. And I think it was
800 extra,
and they lost fat
calories.
and gained muscle.
They may have lost fat, but they did not gain fat. I don't think they lost. Maybe they did, because he did 2 studies. I always get them confused in my head. But yeah, that was, and when that study came out, I didn't believe that. I'm like, this isn't right. Now, to be fair, they didn't monitor their workouts. They worked out on their own. So I'm like, well, maybe they were doing extra stuff. But then we did my study in females, and we didn't overfeed them by 800 calories. It was by 300. But we saw the same thing. So I'm like, well, I mean, I can't not believe my own data. Like I was here. I saw it. I mean, I have it. I saw what they did. I watched their workout. So yeah, it's crazy almost.
I think some of my hypotheses could be that protein itself, it is one of the highest sources of macronutrients that contain a higher TEF or thermic effect of food. In addition to that, I think it is much harder for your body to convert it into fats initially. It prefers to allocate it or convert it into carbohydrates as a kind of first thing they can do, or it actually is used to building other things in your body, like enzymes, all the roles that protein has by itself in your body. So that's my sort of a hypothesis. If you do overfeed from protein, it is more likely that it's going to increase your metabolic rate because it has to work to actually extract all the nutrients from these protein sources. And in addition to that, it needs to, it could be utilized in other things. And especially if you're resistance training and creating that catabolic, anabolic response all the time, it is going to be more useful to have that protein and amino acid pool available for your body to extract and use these amino acids all the time in this sort of a scenario. So I guess that might align with your thoughts. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that I can point to that makes sense. On a molecular level, those peptide bonds, when you're breaking these amino bonds, these amino groups in the peptide chain, that takes a lot of work. So it's releasing more heat, more energy. That's why you have a higher thermic effect from protein. So nitrogen, it's harder for the body to deal with nitrogen. And that's what protein is. Carbs and fats don't have the peptide bonds, the amino groups. So that makes sense. And again, I saw somebody ask, I'm not advocating that anybody overeat by 800 calories. I'm saying there was a study that reported that their subjects overate or increased their calories by 800, all in the form of protein, and they did not gain fat. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you should overeat by 800 calories. from protein.
And it could be challenging anyway. Just to imagine you have to eat only 800 calories just from protein, it can be really tough. And I think it was a high dropout.
The GI distress, I think that would cause a lot of people. Plus, I struggle, I guess struggle is the right word. It's a challenge or a chore for me to get 200 grams or 2.2 grams per kg. I have to plan that, to take dietary supplements, cook meat. It's not easy for me to do that. Some people say that's easy. So if I'm going up to 3 and 4 grams per kg, that's not enjoyable for me. That's
no. It's tough unless you eat a lot of supplements and a lot of protein powder. That is, I guess, is the easiest way to make this happen.